Language from the ocean depths. 30 million years of waiting. Hook. When the research team first pressed play on that recording, the room did not fall silent because of the sound they heard. It fell silent because of what that sound meant. A humpback whale named Twain circled a small boat off the coast of Alaska. She did not flee. She did not panic. She waited for the exact pause, then answered. Did it just wait for its turn to speak? One of the researchers whispered. For 30 million years, something has been talking in the darkness at the bottom of every ocean. No one was listening until an AI processed 9,000 recordings and found something that left an MIT researcher speechless. It was not random noise. It was a complete phonetic system, vowels with structures nearly identical to human ones, a grammar that layers sound into multiple levels of meaning, and a communication network that has operated across the entire ocean, longer than humanity has existed. The first message has been decoded, but the part no one was prepared for was its content. These whales have known about us for centuries, and they have been talking about us. Chapter 1. The Conversation off Alaska. A small research boat sat motionless on the water. The scientists were about to attempt something no one had ever tried. They lowered a speaker into the ocean and played a humpback contact call, the closest thing to a hello in the species language. The recording had been made from Twain herself the day before. In all likelihood, they were playing her own voice back to her. Then they waited. Twain surfaced. She swam toward the boat. She circled slowly. Then she sang back. Call, reply, call, reply. For 20 minutes, a single wild whale maintained a vocal exchange with the humans on the boat, what the lead professor from UC Davis called the first conversational exchange between humans and a humpback whale, in the whale's own language. But what made the entire team shudder was not that Twain answered. It was when she answered. Between every playback there was always a silence, the characteristic pause a humpback leaves before the other party is allowed to speak. Twain waited for exactly that pause. Every single time. She was not making random sounds. She was following a turn-taking structure. She knew when it was her turn. That moment did not appear out of nowhere. It began in a Harvard hallway, where two people who should never have met happened to walk past each other. Chapter 2. The Decoder and the Clicks. Marine biologist David Gruber sat alone in his Harvard office, listening again to old sperm whale recordings from his jellyfish research in the Caribbean. The sounds were rapid mechanical clicks in sequences with fixed intervals. He had heard them hundreds of times, and each time dismissed them as background noise from a species science already understood. Then MIT cryptographer Shafi Goldwasser walked past the open office door and stopped cold. That sounds like Morse code. Have you tried using machine learning to decode it? Goldwasser had spent her career breaking real encryption, the kind governments used to hide their most sensitive intelligence. When the clicks played, her professional instinct reacted instantly. This was a hidden structure. No one had ever tried it. Decades of research and not a single lab had ever fed these sounds into a decoding system. But before any machine was built, the ocean itself sent a warning, one that should have made everyone stop and think carefully. Chapter 3. The Collective Silence at the Galapagos. Researcher Oscar Palacios was acoustically monitoring a group of 25 sperm whales in the Galapagos. The study was going smoothly. Then one day everything stopped. Not gradually, not one by one. All 25 fell silent at the same time. Then they vanished without a trace. The team's conclusion was hard to accept. The whales had detected the underwater microphones, communicated about it among themselves, and made a collective decision to stop vocalizing entirely. They had realized humans were listening long before humans had any clue what they were saying. And sperm whale calves are not born knowing the language. Like human infants babbling, they also practice speaking in the dark while their mothers dive deep to hunt. One of the first sound patterns they learn is called an identity coda, a sonic family name imprinted on the individual from the first weeks of life and carried for 70 years. The first lesson a sperm whale receives is not how to hunt. It is who it belongs to. Chapter 4. The Machine that Reads the Ocean. Goldwasser's question set something irreversible in motion. AI researcher Michael Bronstein joined, explaining that the deep learning technology behind large language models could, in theory, be applied to animal communication. The only requirement: enough data. In 2020, the project was formally named Project SETI, the Cetacean Translation Initiative, bringing together researchers from MIT, Harvard, UC Berkeley, and more than 15 other institutions. Base of operations: the island of Dominica in the Caribbean, one of the few places where multi-generational sperm whale families return regularly and whose individual identities are already known. They deployed a network of hydrophones, biologging tags attached by suction cups carrying 3 synchronized microphones, GPS, depth sensors, and accelerometers, not merely to hear, but to record who was speaking, to whom, what they were doing, and the surrounding acoustic environment all at once. 9,000 recordings were fed into the AI. Science had long believed sperm whales used only about 21 fixed click patterns, each carrying a single meaning like traffic lights. That assumption collapsed completely. The AI identified 156 distinct codas. But the number was not what stunned them. It was what lay inside each coda: tempo, rhythm, ornamentation, secondary clicks inserted into the pattern that changed the entire meaning, the way adding a single word can reverse the sense of a sentence, and rubato, tiny variations that carried emotional nuance. These 4 elements could be layered and combined to create meanings no single click possessed. Scientists call this duality of patterning, the ability to build infinite meaning from a small set of basic units, something long considered the exclusive privilege of human language. The AI found it, in a species that clicks in absolute darkness, more than a mile below the surface. And then the system found something no one was prepared for. The same whale spoke, differently depending on who it was addressing. Audience design, which requires a model of another mind. The AI had found traces of theory of mind in a species humans once regarded as mere noisemakers. Chapter 5. The warning that traveled thousands of miles. The most chilling evidence did not come from a laboratory. It came from the handwritten logbooks of 19th-century whale hunters. At first everything went smoothly. Then, within just 2.5 years, hunting success rates dropped 58%. The whales had not migrated elsewhere. They simply began avoiding ships with a consistency never seen before. The survivors had transmitted a warning through their communication system, even to whales that had never seen a hunting ship in their lives. Historian Bathsheba DeMuth, Brown University. Reading through these journals, found entry after entry describing unease. The animals seemed to be talking to one another. The logs also recorded something long dismissed as ordinary cries of pain. After a whale was harpooned and dying, the entire group would fall completely silent. Then the clicks would begin again, intense, unlike anything previously heard. We now know they have 156 codas, a functioning grammar, and the ability to tailor communication to individuals. Whatever was transmitted in that moment, a warning, a memory, a pain, was real in a real language. Those sounds had never been decoded. Until now. Chapter 6. Sounds that should not exist. Linguist Gasper Begas, UC Berkeley, slowed the recordings from Dominica, studying the precise shape of each sound. The whales were producing vowels. Not approximate sounds, but structures that matched human vowels almost exactly in acoustic terms. N like formant as in father, and I like formant as in see, and even diphthongs, gliding sounds like the in boy. In the past, researchers thought of whale communication as a kind of Morse code. This shows their calls are more like very, very slow vowels. Producing vowels is not simple. It requires a lowered larynx, precise control of tongue and jaw muscles, and a resonating cavity that functions like a finely tuned instrument. In humans, this structure evolved over millions of years and was long considered a biological unique trait of our species. Sperm whales have none of that anatomy. Their sound production system evolved for an entirely different purpose: echolocation in absolute darkness. They did not evolve toward language. They evolved toward something that, when analyzed with the most modern equipment, looks almost identical to language in function. This is convergent evolution, two completely separate lineages, with no common ancestor for hundreds of millions of years, independently arriving at the same complex solution. Our results show there is much more complexity here than previously believed. Perhaps the most understated sentence in the history of modern science. A detail that almost never makes the news. The organ that produces these vowel-like codas is the same organ that produces the animal's deadly click. Chapter 7. Language and Weapon. In the same place. Sperm whales are the loudest animals on Earth. Clicks have been measured at 230 decibels underwater. A jet engine nearby registers about 140. The human eardrum ruptures at 150. At 180, internal organs begin to fail. At peak power, that sound can shatter a human body from the inside. Journalist James Nestor recorded the case of a diver whose arm was paralyzed for nearly 4 hours after a whale swam past and vocalized at moderate distance. Language and weapon living in the same place. November 20, 1820. The whale ship Essex was sailing across the Pacific. First Mate Owen Chase spotted an enormous male sperm whale lying completely still, head pointed directly at the ship. Not swimming, not diving, just motionless. Then it charged. Slowly at first, then faster, then at full speed, and it did not stop. It rammed the side of the ship, throwing sailors across the deck. Then it turned and rammed a second time in the exact same place. The bow was destroyed. 20 men had to jump into 3 small boats in the middle of the Pacific, with almost no food or water. 83 days followed. Thirst, starvation, hallucinations, and death one after another. 8 of the 20 survived to return. This true event was the direct inspiration for Moby Dick. What few people know. Just before the attack, the crew had been hammering to repair a damaged boat. In a rapid, repetitive rhythm. Later researchers have suggested that the sound may have been perceived by the whale as a click pattern of its own species, emanating from inside the ship. If that hypothesis is correct, the whale did not attack out of rage. It attacked what it believed was signaling in its own language. The Essex was not the last case. The Alexander was rammed and sunk in 1851. The Kathleen in 1902. Chapter 8. What we are destroying. A sperm whale can live 70 years. A lifetime of transmitting knowledge to its descendants. The best hunting grounds, safe migration corridors, the dangers to avoid. When a family is wiped out, it takes with it generations of knowledge that no other family possesses. Knowledge that lives not in books but in language. Industrial shipping fills the ocean with constant engine noise. Military sonar sends shock waves through the deep. Seismic airguns blast through every ocean basin. For a species that lives in a world where sound replaces vision, this is no longer ordinary pollution. At sufficient intensity, it causes internal bleeding and permanent deafness. Researchers write bluntly, a deaf whale is a dead whale. At the same time, another phenomenon has emerged. Since 2020, orcas off the Iberian Peninsula have begun targeting the rudders of boats, biting and breaking them. By 2024, at least 500 incidents, 3 boats sunk. The origin has been traced to a female orca that collided with a vessel in 2020. She taught the technique to her group, and the group taught it to others that had never experienced the original event. Social transmission. Transmission through language. 30 scientists signed an open letter urging people not to ascribe human motives to the orca's behavior, while also acknowledging that science still cannot explain why they do this. The Legal Academy has begun to respond. In 2024, indigenous communities in New Zealand and the Cook Islands signed a treaty recognizing whales as legal persons. Project SETI is collaborating with NYU School of Law to study the implications of AI translation for animal rights law. What is language? Is there anything uniquely human about it? Or is it just a continuum? What does that mean for the law? Commercial whaling killed hundreds of thousands of sperm whales in the 20th century. Ship strikes still kill dozens every year. If sperm whales possess language, if they transmit memory across generations through a network spanning the ocean, then every ship that has struck a Whale and continued on its way has not merely killed an animal. It has silenced a speaker mid-sentence. Outro. These animals watched their families hunted with barbed harpoons, and still kept speaking. They watched 2/3 of their species disappear, and still kept speaking. They watched the ocean fill with noise that tears their world apart, and still kept speaking. If their language can carry warnings, memories, and pain across thousands of miles and hundreds of years, then what they have said about us has been accumulating for a very long time. The first message researchers decoded was simply, "I am here." But the message these beings have been sending about the species that pushed them to the brink of extinction, that is something we still have not dared to translate in full. Perhaps because part of us already suspects what it says, that we are the most dangerous thing in this ocean. And they have known it far longer than we have. The first message was not sent when humans began to listen. It was sent 30 million years ago. We have only just built the machine that can finally hear it. If you could ask a whale just one question, what would you ask? Leave your answer in the comments below. And if this video made you pause and think, don't forget to hit subscribe, because the ocean still has so much left unsaid.